Hi guys, Chris Bale, aka the Guernsey Bird Nerd. How are you all? The reason for this video really is we're in a lockdown situation, so although the weather's not bad, although it was blowing a hoolie yesterday, can't really get out and about to do any vlogging, which I'd really like to do at this time, springtime. It's such a great time to be out and about. So I can't really do that. But I've been watching lots of YouTube videos, other YouTubers, nature photographers. I've also been watching lots of how to get new subscribers and things like that. And I'm sure everyone goes through the same process when they start a channel. Now, you guys don't know me, I don't know you, and what my credentials would be. Why would you want to watch me do the same as countless other YouTubers, vloggers, whatever you like to refer to them as. And really my ambitions for my channel are slightly different in the fact that I'd like to have a more broad appeal outside of wildlife photographers and nature photographers, and we're all interested in what each of us do and how to use our equipment and things like that. There's a genuine interest there, but I'd like to use it as a conservation tool locally, for me to be able to share and show people what's on their doorstep, and before we go and ask them to try and save it, they have to understand what's there, they have to have an affinity with it and realise that it's something worth saving. And I think with the skills that I've got, the skills that you've got, it's a very valuable tool to be able to show them on video the way birds are behaving, what they do, how they react to people, and so forth. So that's my vision for my channel. In the meantime, because I can't immediately appeal to those folks, I will be doing vlogs and showing, just because I'm passionate about my local area and my island, Guernsey, and sharing them with you guys. But why would you watch me do that when so many other people are doing very similar things? So hopefully this video you'll get to know me a bit better as a person, as a photographer, see some of my work, some of my portfolio. I've been doing this for probably about 10 years. I've taken a couple of breaks during that time for personal reasons. But yeah, would be over 10 years in actual time when I first got a point and shoot or Kodak 10x zoom camera for my birthday, 2008 I think, because I wanted to take up the hobby of bird watching, which is something I really enjoyed doing when I was younger. So here we are, sort of 12 years on, and I've got a decent portfolio. I've made a living from selling my images through a shop called the Bird Box, which I started, and that's gone very well. I do lots of talks for WI, RSPB, church groups, photography groups, you name it. You know, I'll go and do talks at whatever level, school projects. I go and do school projects and take children out on walks around the park, teach them about bird song and things like that. So it is something I really am passionate about, and hopefully that will start coming through in my videos. They're not very good at the moment. I haven't invested any money in the equipment so far for my YouTube channel. I've always lived by the rule: upgrade your skills before you upgrade your equipment. And the same applies here. So the only thing that I've bought so far for the videos that I've made is the music that I've put alongside things. My camera was a sort of a holiday camera that I bought with one eye of my daughter, who's a rather talented 10-year-old, starting her own YouTube channel. So that's kind of why I bought this little Nikon for that. So I haven't got any real equipment. I'm using building site lights over there to help. Stuff that I've just had around, those lights I bought for when I do outside fairs for Christmas shopping, so that when it gets dark people can still see the images they're buying. So yeah, that's where we're at, and that's where we're starting from. So anyway, nice to meet you. I'm Chris Bale. So I'm going to try and give you 9 tips today, things that I use automatically now when I'm planning a photograph, because with the heavy lump of gear you see behind you, that's the Canon 800mm lens. It's a heavy bit of glass, big tripod, So it's not that I'm not the sort of photographer. When I used to use the 100, 400 and used to go walking around to find subjects and enjoy that. I think when you trade that in for heavier bits of glass, you then putting yourself in one space for a specific shot, really, so that you're waiting for the wildlife to come to you, and it's a very different way of connecting with nature. I think when you make that step, if you want to take that step, it's not like it's a step up. It was something that facilitated the sort of photography that I wanted to do. So now it's very much a case of setting and waiting, using camouflage and things like that. I don't do anything handheld because I'm not Jeff Capes, if you remember who that is, or Popeye or whatever. And as I did sell my images as prints, any camera shake, it does tell when you start blowing things up and printing them. It's all right on Facebook or Instagram, sharing your photos. You can make anything look great at that size. You learn quite quickly when you're going to print photos for exhibitions and shop and actually try and sell them, that they need to be nailed on. So that was a steep learning curve. So anyway, these 9 things. At the top of my list I've got respect for your subject. Now, you might wonder how that would improve the photograph. It doesn't really matter whether it would or it wouldn't. That should really be at the top of your list always. The bird in front of you, its welfare is way more important than your portfolio. So if it's starting to show signs of agitation, or distress calls, or it's not coming back to a perch that it regularly comes to, then you're probably too close. So just take a step back and take a deep breath and say, okay, this is fine. Because if it doesn't come back, then you're not going to get the photo anyway, are you? So that's always going to be top of my list. And as photographers, if you are at the top of your game in your local patch, people will be looking at you for the right way. And if you're setting them a good example, then that will filter down through everything. So really, you're an ambassador for the craft. Photographers in the past had quite a bad rep for disturbing birds and things like that. And there's that constant battle with birders. So don't get involved in it. Take a step back, and it's lovely to get close to your subjects, but it's even more lovely for them to get close to you, because either they don't know you're there, or you've earned some sort of trust or rapport with them that means you can do that. It takes a bit more time, but well worth it in the end. And there's no point in taking a photo of an agitated bird that's displaying, that sort of behaviour. It's not gonna end well. So that would be top of my list. And hopefully, it was a bit preachy, but I got to start somewhere. The next thing, like I say, I'm not going to reinvent the wheel with any of this advice. It's all out there from other photographers that are way better than me. But yeah, be aware of light would be my next thing. So, is it evening? Is it cloud cover? Are you in a woodland where there's going to be sort of heavy shadows? Or is there going to be a big shadow that's going to cross your perch that you set up? You're under camouflage. You're waiting for this bird to come back here, and then by the time it does, it's suddenly in near darkness because the sun's swung around and cast a big tree shadow over it. So always be aware of light. I mean, photography was all about light. A friend of mine had a mentor when I first started. Used to use the phrase "no light, no point." So I'd phone him and say, "Oh, come on, Paul, you're coming out." And he'd be like, "Nah," and he'd look at it and be cloudy or whatever. And he'd be like, "No light, no point, mate." And it used to really annoy me, because I'd be like, "Yeah, but surely that's what you love to do." And I was still at that sort of enthusiastic point where you just wanted to get out and take photos and open something up, and later in the evening and see what you had. He was beyond that. He was a brilliant photographer. And it used to annoy me when he said that, but now, sort of 10 years in, I know exactly what he's pointing at. There's not one photo in my portfolio or that I've sold in the shop or that has been taken in poor light. Okay, overcast conditions and things like that sometimes really help, but that's the right light. You know, if there's no light, like he says, there's no point really. So the next thing on my list from then, I've rewritten the list, will be a background. I'm a big background person. Don't judge me by this photo behind me. I've just realised, that's one of the rare shots I've taken from a distance, and to put an owl in a habitat. I've actually just literally stopped to eat a sandwich, and that popped up there. I took it out the car window. But yeah, like I say, I'm more of a bird on a stick kind of man, and you'll see I'll be pulling up photos on. I'm not doing it now. I'm just talking through the thing, but I'll obviously use some of my photos to illustrate these points. So backgrounds are all important, and you can, you know, from the moment you pick a perch or you've seen a bird land somewhere, you're immediately looking at where you're going to set up, where the light's going to be, and what the background is. And really, for the sake of finding a vantage point for that perch, and then looking beyond that perch to see how far you've got behind it to get a nice diffused background. You might not want a diffused background, you might want a habitat shot like that. That's each to their own. But the background's still a really important part of a photo, isn't it? In my photos, or in a lot of my photos, there's the background, there's the subject, and there's the perch. So you've got three elements. So you might as well make them all count. And that's what really these 9 tips are all about, is making, you know, tiny adjustments, because that's what we're dealing with. There's not much difference between the photos I take and, you know, Danny Green. That's probably a bit, that's ridiculous, but you know, we're all using the same equipment. It's a bit like Formula One, isn't it? You know, everyone's got access pretty much to the same technology, and there's that many limits on what you can do. So ultimately it comes down to the tweaks you make with that technology and how good your driver is. That might be a decent analogy for photography. You know, you've got to be able to drive your equipment. So that's why I'm not giving you any technical talk. That's it. That's a given, that you need to learn your equipment and things like that. I can't really help you with that. That's all about trial and error, reading manuals, and getting out there and really being involved. So background's important, and you might only have to move a couple of feet one way or the other to vastly change the background and the colour. I'll probably show you a picture of a robin on this one, and it took me 3 days to get that photo of a robin, just because I wanted to get this patch of decaying bracken, which was a lovely sort of a red colour, behind the robin's perch, which meant I had to climb a small hill. But then I was quite imposing on top of this hill, so the robin had to get used to me being there. It took an immense amount of effort, but so worth it. So worth it. And that's just a robin photo. Anyway, the next thing on the list would be, how did we write it? Yeah, so eye level. So you picked your perch. If you're gonna, and I usually pick somewhere with 2 or 3 perches, so I've got an A perch, a B perch, and a C perch, so that I'll go away with something that could be a really good record on the further perch, or it could be an environmental shot, as people refer to them. But there'll be a few perches probably within range of the camera, if possible. But the A perch, the front perch, you know, have that just absolutely set up so that if you're going to get a shot, it's going to be the shot. So you want to be on eye level with the bird. So whether you're photographing waders on the beach, you know, get right down there on your belly. Some people's bellies are bigger than others, so you'd be even more on eye level than me if you haven't got to roll around on this bad boy. Oh yeah, and just incidentally, one tip I did think about earlier was if it's awkward to get your tripod and spray the legs out and whatever and get down on the beach that way, because it is quite cumbersome having a tripod, but you do need a tripod or something to hold it steady, then use a bean bag like the one behind me, put it on an old frying pan. It's a really good tip for on the beach, on the sand, because then you can actually, no pun intended, but you can pan around and move around, and it's a lot easier to walk and set up with a frying pan and a bean bag as it is a tripod, if you're going to get right down into the nitty gritty and at sand level. So anyway, that's yeah, so eye level. So wherever your perch is, wherever your bird's going to be, you'll have far more engaging photographs if you're actually, on eye level with the bird itself, or whatever wildlife you're shooting. But I'm talking birds because there isn't much wildlife in Guernsey outside of birds, to be honest, to photograph. We don't have foxes, no deer, no hares. We've got rabbits and hedgehogs, rats, and voles. That's pretty much it. Yeah, there's not a great deal of wildlife outside of birds, so I'm always going to be a bird photographer. So eye level. So yeah, I just mentioned about keeping things steady. I'm always going to use the tripod. In my opinion, it's the second most important bit of equipment I've got. I've got the lens, tripod, camera. Because these days cameras are so good that you could put any camera on the back of a lens, a good lens, and get a decent image. But if you can't hold it steady, you haven't got the tripod, then that image is going to be compromised. So it doesn't matter what camera you've got on the back of it. Well, okay, it's changed a bit. The game's changed a bit. Since I was given the advice, no light, no point. Obviously, we've got cameras that can shoot at ISO 2.5 million and not give any noise and stuff like that, if you can afford them. But again, keeping things steady on a tripod or beanbag, whatever it is, will make a telling difference. It might be a very small difference, but if it's the difference between a shot being pin sharp and not being pin sharp, a shot that you can sell in a shop and not sell in a shop, then it's got to be worth the money, right? It's got to be worth investing in. And putting up with the fact it's a bit more cumbersome and it's a bit awkward and it's a bit... Once you get used to using a tripod and slinging that over your shoulder and having the camera attached to it, it might take you a little bit longer to set up, even if you see something between the car park and when you're going, but you get used to it. And yeah, it's for me, like I say, it's the second most important bit of equipment I've got. What's after that? Then you're going to start thinking about, so if you've got your perch, you've got your camera set up. The other thing about having your camera on a tripod, if you are pointing at a perch, when the bird lands, there's a minimum amount of movement. You haven't got to lift up when I was first starting, I didn't have a tripod. I missed photos of kingfishers and all sorts just from going, there it is. And also you've got to take into account, if you're like me, I get really excited. So barn owls, kingfishers, anything that lands where it's supposed to in front of you or flies by or whatever, you get a shot of adrenaline. You do shake a little bit. You do get excited by it. So the tripod can counter all of that. So if you're ready, then you've suddenly got the bird on the perch that you've got. You're the right distance away. Again, that's about knowing your equipment, about how far you should set away to be able to compose your shot in camera. So then I'd always advocate using back button focus with your thumb, so that you can possibly just move slightly in shot so you can focus on the eye, but then move. Because the more of it that you get right in the camera, the less you have to do in Lightroom, Photoshop and whatever later on in the day. And this is all about getting it right in the camera. So yeah, if you can compose your shot, again, you'll be looking at my photos, so you'll be a little off centre, or a lot off centre really. A lot of my shots look very similar in composition, and that's just the way I like it. I find them aesthetically pleasing. Other people might have different ideas of what they'd like to do, but by having that luxury of using the focus with your thumb, and there's loads of tutorials about it. Other photographers that will talk you through all these things. In fact, I might put in the comments section, I'll probably put some links to YouTube videos that I've found helpful by other photographers that explain these things in greater detail, if you're wondering what I'm talking about. So yeah, get the composition right in the camera as much as you can, and then that stops cropping. That means you don't lose pixels from your image, so that when you do print it, you can go to a much bigger size before the quality of the image is compromised. Then here's a big bugbear, is that the right word? Bugbear of mine? The head angle. You know, you've gone to all that trouble to get a bird to land in front of you and whatever. Don't panic when it does land in front of you. Have the patience and the discipline. I know it's hard just to wait for it to do what you want to do, to strike the pose that you want it to. It might not. It might fly away. But at least you know it's coming back to that perch. It feels comfortable, and that in 20 minutes time, 40 minutes time, 2 hours time, you're going to get another crack at it. So many people, I mean, you've got cameras that can take 12 photos a second. As soon as the bird lands like that, and it hears the shutter and off it goes, and you look back later in the night and you've got 12 photos of its backside and the back of its head, and you're thinking, well, if I'd have waited a little bit just for it to look over its shoulder or whatever it is. You don't want it staring right down the camera, or I don't ever want it really staring down the camera unless it's an owl, which happens sometimes. But just get a nice head angle where it's going to, you know, you've thought about where the light's going to be, so it's going to get a lovely glint in its eye, and the whole thing is going to, you're on eye level, the whole thing's going to pop if you just wait long enough. I'll show you a grey wagtail photo. It's probably the most infuriating photo that I have, and I didn't delete it because somebody wanted it to buy it, and it's a nice photo. It all makes sense. The colours all match. It's a nice photo of a grey wagtail, except for this infuriating, unsatisfactory, unpleasing to the eye head angle. I can't look at it. I won't sell it to anyone else. I'll never print it and put it in the shop. It's just that someone did see it and went, I like that, can I buy it? And it's annoying because I know I won't get that particular opportunity again, I don't think. But anyway, I'll show you it. You can see if you can tell what I mean. Hopefully you can. Yeah. And we've all got those. And the last thing is, once you've got all of that, just to make sure it's in focus. You know, get your focal point over the eye. Don't try and shoot sort of wide open. Well, no, don't. No, I'm not going to say don't, but again, if you've picked the background and it's far enough away, that's my phone, sorry. It's far enough away, you can shoot at f8 and still have a nice diffused background. If you're having to shoot at f5.6 or whatever to try and keep the background diffused, then you've got every chance that, you know, maybe your focal point will slip just on the shoulder, so the eye will be slightly out of focus. It's not worth that risk. So f8 and wait. The same guy who told me no light, no point, used to say f8 and wait. And again, not that I didn't pay any attention to him then. Obviously I did, because I still can recite what he told me and what I tried to learn from him. I used to write things down. He was like a guru. F8 and wait. It's a great bit of advice. It means that you don't lose any detail in the tail. Quite often the tail of the bird is out of focus, but the eye is perfectly in focus because you're only dealing with, you know, depth of field like that, aren't you? So, yeah, F8 and wait, just stretch that depth of field out a little bit and get more feather detail in right the way through the bird. That's as good advice as I could ever give. Yeah, because the thing is, if you get home and infuriatingly your photo is not quite in focus, it's going to be annoying. And a slightly different mentor. There used to be the three of us, and these two guys were brilliant. He came out with the phrase, and it wasn't really like him, but he said, "Chris, you can't polish a turd," and that's always stuck with me. Absolutely, always stuck with me. Is that, you know, you can't, once you've taken that photo, you can't change it. The best you can do is go back and try and take it again. You know, it might be an opportunity that's gone. I'm much more mellow than I used to be. I used to get annoyed if I'd missed a photo opportunity and things, but now I've got a much calmer philosophy on life, thinking I will get a second chance to photograph that and whatever. Before it used to be the be all and end all. But like I say, when you start carting around the heavy gear, you become okay with the idea of you're either going to get the shot or no shot. And it's just annoying when you're a photographer, you want to go home and have photographs. I mean, you do. That's obvious. But you can take pleasure and feel blessed in just being a part of nature when you're under camouflage or whatever. You can take solace in being a part of it, enjoying the things that are around you and that are going on, and come back without a photograph and still feel at one with the world. I used to struggle with that idea, but now, like I say, I'm either going to get the shot or no shot, and that's a trade-off I'm quite happy to make, because the exhilaration of getting the shot far outweighs the disappointment of going home a couple of times with nothing. Makes me tick. So yeah, hopefully the 9 little tips I've given you there might be helpful. If not, it's been a great opportunity to have a chat. It's a bit one-sided chat, I must admit. But yeah, if you want to get involved with the chat, leave me a message down below. Ask some questions. About Guernsey, about the wildlife here, about any of the points that I've said about, tips I've given. Whether you agree with them, whether you think they're all right, just chat to me. Let me know, and don't forget to subscribe. It'll be good to make friends with you. Really, we're all in this together, doing different reason for the same outcome. All right, so thanks for listening. If you're still watching, then absolutely fair play to you. I'm probably going to re-record this and make it about a third of the length, but I love talking. That is my problem. But anyway, all the best, guys. Take care. Thanks for listening, and enjoy your birds.